Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to play a little song here to start with, and then we'll get started after this little ditty. This little ditty.
Our famous little ditty, or your famous little ditty.
Yo, the chef lost my hot, let's drive. Caffeinated kangaroo with the crew worldwide. From Vanity to LA, we flip the script. Helping burns out bad, let the hustle shift. This ain't hype. It's purpose and play. Building biz with sold a laptop that way. Real AI freedom in your grip. With a boom sauce beat and a real talk fit. Play, let's roll. You're the hero now, which is here to go. Let's now, legend in the heart of town where kangaroos coaching, kings wear crowns. This is the laptop lifestyle dad show. Boom sauce, baby.
Well, I actually quite like that tune. It gets you pumped up, that's for sure. It's boom sauce, baby. All right.
I wasn't playing real well.
Hey?
I said, I'm not sure what was going on there. I could only hear bits and pieces of it.
I don't think I was shared the tick the box with the sound. Oh, silly me. That simple little box, didn't ticket. Anyway, all right, guys, let's get this party started. Okay, guys, I've got a bit of a confession to make.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Years in this space, I was actually addicted when I first started. I was addicted to what I call these days vanity metrics. You know, I was addicted to tactics, funnel templates, sales scripts, you know, viral audio hooks, you know, the works. Put your hand up if you felt that way. I hope I'm not alone, because I know I have. And I know I'm sure you have too. But I still felt like when I was doing all these things, I was shouting into the void and nobody was hearing me. It wasn't until I realized that the issue wasn't what I was doing or even how I was doing it. It wasn't my funnel. It was my voice. And this is where we start to bring this voice framework in to help us to go deeper and get louder, to rise above the crowd, not just to scream out that nobody hears us, but actually have people stand up, pay attention, and connect. It wasn't clear. It wasn't until I got clear on who I was, why I was here, and who I was here to serve. That's where everything started to change. And that's why this session, when we dive into the LLD Academy, it's positioned right smack in the middle here, because it's not about content. It's all about strategy. It's actually even deeper than that. It's about multiplying leaders, not followers. It's about building a brand that leaves a legacy. Drop a little voice in the comments for me if you're ready to lead louder, to love harder, and to lift others up as you rise. You know, because this is what we talk about here is the customer value journey. If you've never heard that concept, well, welcome. I'm going to introduce you to the roadmap to take people from cold to sold. But when you layer over the voice framework, this helps you to get you that depth and go deep and rise above. And then I'm also going to introduce another framework to layer on top of this to go even more robust, and that's called our Hero Makers framework. So let's get on this in a truth that flipped everything for me and helped me to really start get attention and start get traction and start to build a business and a life by design. You know, there are three types of leaders in every community, whether you're aware of it or not. You know, we've got the aspiring leader, and the aspiring leader's identity is, I think I'm called to more. There's a hunger, there's a yearning. They know that there's more out there for them, and they're called to it, and they're looking for that space. What that aspiring leader leads, say that 10 times fast. What that aspiring leader needs, not necessarily wants, but what they need is they need belief. They need direction, and they need community. Now, if you're writing notes down, I want you to really write that down, because this is what we're doing with our people, right? Whether you realize it or not, you're a leader who's growing in action. You're a leader who's growing in influence. You're a leader who's building trust with your community, whether you're just getting started. You're helping people to transfer that belief. You're giving people direction, the guide on the journey, and you're giving that community space to help them to feel seen and valued. The next leadership track as you evolve on this journey is the hero stage. This is the self-mastery stage. This is, I've actually built something that works. Now, how do I create duplicatable systems and clarity to help others to jump on board with me? And this is where we now expand on the vision. But there's a third stage, and I don't think enough leaders talk about this third stage. And I'm going to really transform and change this conversation to talk a bit more about the hero maker stage. The hero maker stage is where I build leaders who build other leaders. I've been doing this without even realizing. I've been doing it without even having the vocabulary to attach to it. And so this is the leadership track that we're all on. And we either identify being as an aspiring leader, a hero on the journey, or a hero maker. A hero maker is all about multiplication. They're all about movement. They're all about mentorship. And I believe that you need to have three things in your circle of influence on your growth journey. You need to have a mentor. A mentor is someone who's 10 to 15 years further down the path than you are. Then you need to have a coach. Jade and Dave, they're great coaches in this space. They're 2 to 3 years down the path that you are. So I'm a mentor, been in this game 16 years. Jade and Dave, they would be identified as coaches. They're on that pathway. They're 2 or 3 years ahead of you, and they're teaching you what they know. The third spot here is the peers. You're locking arms and you're running together. We're going to introduce this new concept called a triad group here in today's conversation. I'm going to go back into that and deepen that spot. But it is proven that when you put a goal and you put a plan in place and you go and do that on your own, you're more likely to achieve that goal 20 to 30% of the time. But if you do it in partnership, in a space that has accountability and community and intimacy, that goes from 20 to 30% up to 95% success. So we're going to introduce this new concept, this buddy system, if you will. But I just want to quickly just check in here and ask yourself, where are you right now? Are you an aspiring leader? Are you a hero on that journey? Or are you a hero maker? So ask yourself where you are right now on that journey. And then the next question to ask yourself is, where do I want to lead from in 6 months' time? And it's okay wherever you are on that journey. And sometimes we've got to take a step back to that level, to grow in that space, to mature in that space more before we're ready for the next level. So this masterclass is one of those ones that you're going to have to go back over. And so again, it's been recorded. It's been delivered live in the Facebook group. If you're watching live in the Facebook group, I'm not watching the comments there. Please come and join us at www.lldzzoom.com.au. If you're watching the replay, I'll watch the comments and the replay and interact with you there after the fact. But otherwise, love you to come join. We've got Jeanette, Jaya, Dazza. We've got Jade and Dave here as well. So thank you very much for tuning in live. So let's get into today's roadmap. Now, the engine of this whole vehicle, right, is this voice framework we've been talking about. The voice framework is our emotional connection point to the market. It's not the branding fluff. It's the heartbeat of your business. And we've been speaking a lot about that. And so let's just give a bit of a breakdown here and a recap. But I want to bring in and layer in each depth each week, a buy-in psychology point, a tie-in to help you to unlock this and go deeper. So V is for values, but what is what it unlocks for you, it also unlocks for your people. It becomes the filter for your tribe. Because we're wanting to do business with aspiring leaders who are like us. The only difference between any one of us is how far down that path we are. You've either been pulled up the mountain by a mentor or a coach, or you're helping to bring others up the mountain because you're an aspiring leader. The buy-in psychology here is people buy based on alignment, not logic alone. So you got to be really clear on your values, your vision, your mission. You got to understand where you're going, who you're taking with you, and how you're attempting to get there. The how's not as important as knowing the why and the who. The how starts to materialize stepping stone by stepping stone by stepping stone, but it only comes about when you're actually in action and going through that messy growth journey, right? O is for origin story. What that origin story does, it builds vulnerability, but it also adds trust because it helps you to meet your people where you're at. It helps you to connect to that heart-to-heart space. You know, it's your I used to be like you moments. It's I used to be in Sucksville moments. And this automatically fires off those mirror neurons and the RAS system, our reticulated active system in our brain, in the bind psychology, and the emotional chemicals that are all going through us. It creates that emotional bond, which equals trust. You know, I stands for influence, as we know. And this is about inspiring action, and it's your leadership part. You know, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. You know, your authority post, give other people permission to believe in you. And again, you know, so when you're leading with your authority sort of type content to speak directly to people's hearts, it starts to create that bond, which deepens that trust and then gives you in that position to be the guide on the journey, which then builds your influence. C is for clarity. You know, confused mind will never take any action. But when we convert confusion into confidence, that is even where a trust bond is even deepened even further, because you're the person responsible to give them that level of clarity. That's why I know with everybody on these calls has a connection with me and hanging off every single word, because it's like, okay, what's the next mic drop Jeff's going to drop? What's the next light bulb he's going to unlock for me? Because there's a trust and a belief that's been built over time to get to this point. You know, clarity closes the loops and confused minds don't buy. Clarity helps you to move to the stepping stone, and go to base camp to get to the top of the mountain. But, you know, you do the work. We're just guiding you through that process, and that's what you do for your people as well. E is for expression. This is where your energy becomes magnetic and also shareable. This is where Dan Kennedy talks about mention marketing. You know, I just got a post there. I haven't spoken to this guy for probably about 6 months, but yet he tagged me in one of his posts, the top 10 social media profiles that everybody must follow to learn how to make money online. This guy's in UK. His name's Brian Mills, and he's put me as one of those top 10 people. I haven't spoken to him for 6 months, but I know my content that I do and I serve in that capacity. It's magnetic and it's shareable, you know, for other leaders, other experts. He's an expert and a leader in his own right, but he's pointing people to other people to connect, to build his influence, because he's the connector, but he's also sharing the love, right? People share what makes them feel something. You ever noticed, you know, why the media these days really leverage, you know, clickbait and fear mongering, and people can't stop talking about it. They have to share it because people are feeling something. It doesn't have to be good to share it. Most of the time, people will share the negative before they'll share the good. But let's encourage them and give them the narrative and give them confidence to share the light and joy and love in the world. Let's be the lighthouses of the world to lead people to possibility and hope, whatever that looks like for you. So I want you to ask yourself right now, and just put a comment in here in the comments for me, but rate yourself from 1 to 5 for each of the voice elements from B to E. You know, which are the ones that you need to dial in this week to get clearer, to get louder, to get stronger, to get more connected? And just give yourself a scale of 1 to 5. You know, on values, 1 is I've got no idea where to start, Jeff. 5 is I've got my values dialed in, let's go. Same with origin, same with the influence piece, same with the clarity and the expression piece. And I want you to send me a message as well and say, Jeff, here are my 1 to 5 score on the voice framework. Because then this will give me a bit of an indication of where we move into for our hot seat type coaching in 2 weeks' time. So we're setting up. So Jade's going to be talking all about how to use funnels and content, lead magnets, and how to use AI in that space next week. And that's a really powerful call. It always is. I love watching Jade shine in her space there, in her zone of genius. And, you know, you're going to be in great hands because I'm going to be in America next week, but Jade's going to look after you in that space. And then the following week, we're going to pull all this together We're going to look at your voice framework, and we're going to, start to really dial in your customer value journey. So for those of you who are doing the work, Jeanette, Daryl, Jaya, those who are coming along for the ride, you guys will be able to really implement and get into the hot seat here with that in that week 6 session. But a great voice with no direction still goes nowhere. And this is where we tie in the customer value journey. And this is where this comes in. So the voice is the vertical. And then if you put the horizontal across, this is where we get the connection point, the cross point, the intersection. Most people post without knowing what to post. They don't even know what part of their journey their audience is in. They don't understand who they're talking to and where they're at. Jade and I just had a really good brainstorming conversation for one of our done-for-you clients. And the light bulb moment that come up for me in that space is we talk a lot about this customer value journey. We talk a lot about the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel conversations. And if this is new language, just bear with me. But what we don't talk about enough is the 3 levels of audience. And this is why I'm layering in that leadership track for this hero makers conversation for us, right? These are the 3 levels of audience. The top of the funnel, which is cold audience, is our aspiring leaders. Our warmer audience, which is middle of the funnel conversation, is the ones who are doing the self-mastery work. You guys are all moving in from aspiring leader to that hero maker, to that hero conversation. That's the hero's journey that you're on. That self-mastery, the skills that you acquire. And look, that journey can take anywhere from 12 months to 5 years for some people. But then we're very clear on the 3rd level of that audience is once you've got that self-mastery, you've got some runs on the board, you've got some credibility, you've got some authority, then it moves into that hero makers conversation. They're our 3 levels. So you've got to stop and ask yourself, what are your 3 levels? What is your cold audience, your top of the funnel? Who are your people who are just starting out, your caterpillars? What is the cocoon phase? Where you're moving into that warmer phase. They're going into that messy transformation phase. What is the butterfly stage? Caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly. What does that journey look like? Then when you understand what that looks like, you can then layer in this customer value journey. I'm going to share my screen with you for a second because everything we're talking about here, right, is marketing. So sales and marketing has changed. With AI and social media and funnels and everything all in that space. But one thing that has not changed and never will change is us humans. The way that we process decisions, the way that we interact, the way that we engage, right? So this is why we call it H2H marketing. So understanding this customer value journey is all about the bridge to the next stage, which is heart-to-heart conversations or human-to-human. In another way of putting it, right? So when we break it down like this, right, we're all taking people on a relationship journey. And if you haven't read this book, I reckon every marketer needs to go read this book by Desmond Morris, and it's got nothing to do with marketing. What it's got to do with is the boom chicka wow wows. How do we go from stranger to let's go to bed and let's get married? How does human intimacy happen? And it's really important to understand this part of the conversation because then you can understand the 3 levels of your people, right? There are 12 stages to intimacy. You think about it. You're a bloke who's just met this beautiful woman in a bar. You don't know her from a bar of soap. These are the 12 stages of intimacy that the intimate behavior goes through that Desmond Morris unpacks. Eye to body. So you're all right. All right. And then it goes back and forth, right? It's reciprocated. We start to go to the next level. Eye to eye contact now. Voice to voice. We start a conversation. Hand to hand. Arm to shoulder. We're flirting a little bit. Arm to the waist to the back. We're getting a little bit more intimate. Mouth to mouth. Now we start the kissing stage. Hand to head. Hand to body. Now we're groping and we're feeling around, right? Mouth to body, hand to where, and then boom, chicka, wow, wow. This is the stages that is unpacked, and this is animal behavior. What Desmond Morris unpacks in that book is, you know, humans need to be a little bit more intimate with each other before we get to the boom chicka wow wow stage. Not like horses, where they just smell the pheromones. They know that the mare's on season and the stallion gets, you know, gets his rager up and he goes and does his job. And yes, I used to do that for a living. I used to be the guy who used to, you know, hold the penis and put it in. I've done some crazy jobs in my life. But this is about understanding the chemical bond that goes on in this space, right? It's understanding the relationship and the communication at each level. And when what this does for us is it starts to highlight this, yeah, the fluffer for the horses. It starts to highlight this stage. And if you can start to mirror it up, right, and we're going through these levels of intimacy, this is what I introduce you to as the customer value journey. You know, but we're not trying to get our customers to go to bed with us. So instead of 12 stages, there are only 8 stages. You know, we're building that relationship from going cold to sold conversation, right? So we're taking them from being aware. So what are they aware of? They're aware of problems. They're aware of challenges. They're aware of where they're at. They're aware of what they don't want to be doing anymore. They're aware of their frustration. So we talk to these awareness points. And that's attraction. That's, you know, because when you speak to that Sucksville, that starting, that before stage, you know, people grab attention and they gravitate towards you because you're their bridge towards their hope, light, and joy. So as you can see here, there's a before stage and there's an after stage. So we move from awareness to engaging. Now we're having a conversation. Now there's some trust being built. Now there's been some that know, like. I would actually go further and saying that this is where we get to connect, relate, and resonate. And this is where that transfer of belief is going from each stage to each stage, and we go deeper and deeper. We move now into what we call the community stage, you know, or an email list, a subscribe stage. And see, people try to market themselves and convert people who are not even aware of them. And they wonder why this does not work. Because we've got to nurture people through it. We've got to build that relationship, and we've got to give them a pathway to follow, to help them to connect the dots. See, we're not selling all the features and benefits of XYZ product. What we're doing is we're transferring belief and confidence and clarity to help them to sell themselves. Nobody likes being sold to, but we all love to buy. What are we buying? We're buying those outcomes, those impacts to help us to go from Sucksville to Awesome Town, from before to after. And when you can lead with your content marketing out the front here to create an awareness of what solutions are possible for them, to be the light bulb, you know, the one who ticks off the light bulbs for them. So you're transferring your belief, you're transferring that connected energy to move them into deeper. You're giving them all the tools to empower them, to equip them to help themselves. Does that make sense? So as we go here, let me sort of just line up the CVJ with the voice framework, and then let's introduce this hero level leadership levels. So awareness. All right, awareness is we're leading with our values. So B for values. This is an awareness stage, right? And sharing our vision, sharing our mission, you know, sharing our stories. You'll get way sick of sharing them before anybody else does, because you've got to remember, not everybody else hears it as many times as you do. But you can share it in different angles and different frameworks and different facets to the diamond. But this is your point of view post. Here's where I stand. This is what I stand for. This is what I stand against. That's really great content to express your values. And this speaks to the level of the aspiring leader, the entry level, the awareness stage of the customer value journey. Now we move into the engage stage, and your origin story is speaking to that top of the funnel, the aspiring leader in our case. And you can do that via real story. It's the I used to be stuck in Sucksville. It's I used to be here and now I'm here. And this is how I got there, and you can follow me too. Would you like to come? You know, that's really great in content to get people engaged and start a conversation, right? To move to the community stage where you can go deeper in that origin story, and it doesn't always have to be the same story over and over again. You know, this is why we master the art of story selling, because even this lesson right now is a story that you can share with your people. And stories are designed to help people to become connected, to transfer that belief, to build that trust, to bring them into your community because they want to gravitate to you. You're magnetic and they want to know more about how you can help them out. And that's when they move them to, subscribe stage or the community stage. And Jade's going to show you next week on how to build lead magnets to get people either in a group or on your email list. And this is speaking to that top of the funnel conversation still. We're not quite at the middle of the conversation yet. This is about that aspiring leader for us at this stage. These are your convert tools. From traffic to lead conversations, really. So, okay, you know about my story. You know about the things I stand for. Now, here are 5 lessons from my journey. Now, to get those 5 lessons, I'm going to ask you to give me your email and your name and your phone number. So now you become a lead on my database. And then that's going to take you into, we're going to deliver that 5 lessons inside our little private group. So now we're taking people out of the big wide ocean and we're bringing them into our little fishing pond so we can love on them and build that trust and build that connection. So then that's the right time to put the right product in front of the right people. And this is the convert stage. This is where your influence is built and why we build our influence in this stage. Now we're moving into, that middle of the funnel conversation. And ways that we can do that is through case studies, is teach before you sell the content, is do those Facebook Lives, is, give teaching and give value. Inspire the people take action, give them tangible little takeaways that they can go run for themselves, and then offer them a call to action to come to you. This is when we move into that excite phase. And once again, that's that middle of the funnel conversation. This is where we're taking people before and the after journey client thing. If you look at our funnel that David and I have been doing, right, he's run his $5 little offer. They're little lead magnets, converting people from leads into buyers. But they're little bundles there. I've got 20 people that have said yes to buying that $5 offer. And then we've got the right product in front of the right people at the right time now to convert and upsell them. And this is where we ascend people, creating more clarity for people. So how do we scale from here? This is your next step. This is the next stage. This is the start and end, what you get, right? And then we move into the expression part of this conversation, which is the advocacy. They're bought in. They can't help but share about you. This is that mention marketing stage. And then you can incentivize people to become referral partners for you because they just can't help but shut up. So you might as well incentivize them because they're raving fans. And then that's how we start the whole awareness process again. So that's a bit of a recap there on how you can lay the voice framework over it all. See, your job in this whole process is to match your content calendar to the stages on this journey. Speak to one post, one stage of the journey, one step moving forward. And then you move people forward depending where they're at. Dave and I did a live this morning in the early hours, and we gave, at the end of that live, we gave you three stages, 3 call to actions. And so we're running it live to, the 10,000 followers I've got on Facebook. I don't know who's watching. I don't know who's interacting. There are a lot of silent stalkers out there. But I spoke to each 3 stages. If you're not a part of our community yet, come join our free group. Boom. Hey, if you're not part of the LLD Academy yet, come join us for $49. Boom. Hey, if you're not a part of the 30-day program yet, come join us for $19 for the offer runs out. Boom. So it's gone deeper, deeper, deeper. Rather than trying to sell the $199 offer to the cold audience, I may convert maybe 1 or 2%, but I know if I do it this way, I'll convert 10 to 15% and get people into that space. I'll come back to Q&As in a second, sorry. So one post, one journey stage, one move forward, when you're talking to your content. You got to speak to people where they're at. So let's be real about why people buy. The buying stage, the top of the funnel conversation, right? The emotional trigger everybody's looking for in this stage is a sense of belonging, is to know that they're understood. Show me I'm not alone. That's what they really want. So when we're marketing to the cold audience, to the top of the funnel conversation, we're speaking to that emotional trigger. Show me that I'm not alone. You know, the middle of the funnel conversation is the emotional trigger that they're looking for is belief in systems and scalability. They want to know that you got your shit together. They want to know that they've got a bouncing ball that they can follow to help them to get to get results. You know, help me get results again, again, and again, and again. That's the middle of the funnel conversation. And the bottom of the funnel conversation is they want to know that they're significant and there's space for them to have legacy impact. You know, let me impact others. Let me be on the journey to be able to lock arms and run with you. You know, if you're only creating for the top of the funnel, if you're only creating for the starting point, if you're only creating for the aspiring crowd, you'll always have to push and pull people. But when you speak to the hero makers in your environment, this is where people you gravitate and you raise your level, you know, your leadership lid to a higher level, and you attract and magnetize other leaders, and then this is where you start to create movements. It's much easier to focus on multiplication activities than it is to focus on duplication. It's actually harder to focus on trying to get people to duplicate than it is to get people to multiply, because you need to have your duplicatable systems in place already to get them to multiply. But the conversation shifts for when they're ready for it. So as we move into week 6, I want you to start thinking about this. You don't need to have it all figured out, but I want you to start thinking about this and how we can implement this and map out your voice journey, map out your customer value journey, map out your heroes makers journey. And that's where we're going to really hit the road and the rubber and get this to pull us together. You know, Dave talked about content calendars the other week and how to create content. We've talked about, you know, the voice framework on how you can find your voice. We talked about your audience. Today, we're talking about the 10,000-foot view of why we do all this and how to navigate people through. So we're going to take a couple of you and we're going to help you to figure this out. So the promise is at the end of 6 weeks, at the end of that class, is that you'll have a mud map for you to go and implement over the next 3 to 6 months to build out your business model. So right now, you need to understand where you are. So what stage of leader am I? You know, what voice element do I need to strengthen this week? What customer value journey stage is my audience stuck in? You know, these are some of the questions that we're going to be unpacking on week 6. So today we're talking about rewiring your leadership engine. You know, today we're talking about giving you the scope for a funnel, which is the customer value journey. You know, Jay's going to talk about landing pages and thank you pages, the mechanics about funnels. What I'm talking about here is a business funnel. It's the bigger funnel, right? It's the how do you keep the top of the funnel always full? Because when you get this right, then all you need to do is keep the top of the funnel full and everything just trickles down and you've got consistency and you've got scalability. You know, so we've talked about the funnel, which is the customer value journey. We've talked about the brand engine, which is the fuel to this engine, you know, which is the voice framework. And now we're talking about the identity, which is the leadership track. Every business model has a leadership track. What is yours? So let's go from just posting content for the sake of posting content and go from building connection, which will in turn build conviction, which will in turn go to the space of multiplication and communities. So it's about following the stepping stones to build on that space. So identify where you're at. Are you aspiring? Are you a hero or are you a hero maker? Come back to me and send me an email or a message and tell me, Jeff, this is where I'm at on that leadership track. And here's my 1 to 5 scale on my voice framework. And help me to you know, get there from instead of maybe a 2, get me there to a 5. What do I need to do? And we'll go back through and we're going to do an internal health check. Right? Because if we want our external results and our external world to reflect, you know, our dreams and our hopes and our desires, well, we need to understand the internal gears that's turning around to get the bigger flywheel moving forward, to get that traction, to get that, you know, that rubber hits the road moment. So, guys, just to reiterate, and I'm just going to drive this nail home, we're not talking about here about just building a brand. We're talking about here about building leaders who build the future and have that legacy impact. So let's open it up to a bit of Q&A, and I'm going to go around the room. I'll start with Jeanette. What was the thing that spoke to your heart today? What was that light bulb moment? And, you know, where are you on this journey? Where do you identify as an aspiring leader, a hero, and what is keeping you stuck from moving forward to the next stage in the journey? So, Jeanette, what was the thing that spoke to your heart today? Where are you identify, and what's the thing that's got you stuck and stopping you from moving forward?
The thing that spoke to me today, basically that I'm aspiring. I'm at the basically back to the bottom. So back to the I'm starting again. So I'm like,
you're definitely you're in transition from aspiring to hero, right?
Yeah,
because you're doing a lot more than others are doing in that space, in that self-mastery space.
Yeah.
Quite the hero stage figured out, but you're closer to the hero stage than you are the newbie beginner stage.
But it's probably a good place to come back in because it's an area that I'm heading for and leading to, and it's an area where I've struggled, this area, or this customer value journey. So, what was the next tip? So I'm aspiring is what I'm at.
So what spoke to your heart today then at the level that you're resonating with?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even think what.
There was a lot in that, and there's definitely one to go over and over again.
Yeah. And what the third thing?
Well, so I'll come back to that. You know, that light bulb moment. What was the level of new clarity that you've gotten from today's conversation?
Well, it was great to know, like that. I like that level, the different levels, like the aspiring level, like knowing what the different levels.
Yep. Is Jeanette frozen for everybody else, or just me? No. Okay. So yeah. So you're talking about you like the different levels and understanding where you're at.
Yeah. And what you're leading to. Yeah.
So is there anywhere that you're stuck right now from helping you to move forward?
Oh, that was what it was. Well, like I'm sort of coming out of that now that I've had, you know, a lot of health things, issues and stuff like that, and surgery and that. So I've been in a couple of times, I've been in a little bit of a dark space and a bit of that, but I'm coming out of that now. So, so I feel like I'm actually moving forward again. So, yeah.
That's good. That's all right. All right. Well, it's all about, you know, taking that step up, you know, one moving forward, right?
Just not trying to get overwhelmed with coming back, and I'm like easing myself into everything. So otherwise I'll start get overwhelmed and then I'll stop. So
I want to speak to that overwhelm, and it's your subconscious mind freaking out again because it's not familiar. But each time you do this and you go around, it becomes more familiar. It becomes like an onion, and then go deeper and deeper. So this is where I'm going to introduce this concept of this triad too, right? So, for example, right, I really want you to lean in on myself, Jade, and the three of us really help support you to get to that space. I think Jade's going to be able to bring that feminine energy into that conversation, and she'll be able to help you out with that tech overwhelm side of things and whatnot. And we can really, you know, navigate that together. I can do so the mentorship, the coach, and then the aspiring leader stage. So that's that three triad moving forward. And you know, Daryl, you know, we could do the same with me, you, and Dave in that conversation. And Jaya, you know, it could be Jade, Dave, and Jaya would probably be a really good one in that space. To the six of us on this conversation today. And what this does is it creates that extra level of support, that extra safe space, that deeper level of connection to go, I know that I'm not on my own. And today's just a bad day. Today's just a blah day. But here's what I learned. Here's what I could have done different. Here's what I could have done better. Now, this is that moving from that that aspiring leader to that self-mastery level. Like if you're in a triad, it really needs, you know, one of you is to step up and be that hero maker in the conversation, into that leader to navigate that space, to do the check-in, to ask the questions. And then the person who's like the hero in that conversation is the one who needs to do the coaching element of it all, get into the technical and the mechanical and the how-to component of it all. But the person who's the aspiring leader in that conversation also needs to have a safe space and go, okay, I'm stuck. Where do I move forward here in that conversation? So it needs the three to work together for this, this environment to really work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we're going to set up these little mini group chats around just to help these triad conversations. And look, this is very much an experiment, but I see that this is that next level of that extra accountability and that extra level of support to help us to build in that space where we're not alone, and we do have that place where we can just go blah and that safe space to get it out of our system, but also to process it and support each other. And it goes in that space.
Yeah.
So I'll come back to that. I'm going to ask everybody to really, I promise, I buy in, that conversation. I'm going to get a declaration for everybody if that's okay. I really feel like that is an integral piece for us to continue to grow in this space. So Daryl, what was the light bulb moment that unlocked for you today? And where do you identify on that leadership track? And what's the one thing that's got you stuck at the moment that you need help to move forward?
Certainly, definitely at the aspiring level. I think part of today's conversations actually also helped me identify it's not just that project that I'm working towards that I'm been very focused on it at late, but the journey along the way to becoming that leader, that next level, to be able to coach others in this area as well. That's something that would, I don't know how to explain it, but just coming from my passion of wanting to serve and help people, knowing that a majority of men my age have no clue how to use AI and things like that, and sort of showing there as my journey, hey, look, if I can do it,
yeah, right,
why can't you?
Yeah, right. And it's that learn, do, teach model. It's that learn by leadership by example. So understanding that and going deeper in that space, what clarity does that give you, and how does that make you feel knowing that that's where you're moving towards?
Yeah, well, it's actually made me consider, I'm involved in a lot of communities online with gaming and streamers. And I can see this as a very easy tool to bring into that ecosystem to help them grow and grow bigger audiences and make more on their end as streamers and gamers.
Right.
And also the same way I could do that with local business here, because I'm quite passionate about helping my local community, helping small businesses grow. And these are the tools that they need to do that.
Well, if you're okay in 2 weeks' time for week 6, give me permission. I'd love to really help to map that out and what that looks like for you.
Definitely, yeah. Keen as.
Cool. Awesome.
Because it's something for me to work on and master my skills whilst working towards that passion project that I have.
And that right there is, you've hit the nail on the head. That is, we always need something we're aspiring towards, but we need stages that we don't just strive to, that we actually arrive to.
Yep.
And we need those milestones, but we always need something. There's always a bigger mountain. When you got to the top, there's another bigger mountain. But you need to understand, as I said, you need to understand where you are. You need to understand what's possible and where you're going, and start to see the top of the mountain. But you don't need to necessarily have the stepping stones along the way, because they will unfold as you dig into this. But you need that guide to help you to keep going that 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. And that's why I really believe this triad conversation is an answer to a lot of that prayer. But it's that guiding journey to help you to navigate it, and we figure it out together. Instead of doing it on your own, it's moving forward together, and we go a lot further together.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I love it. Jade, what's been the big thing that's spoken to your heart today? And then we'll go to Dave. And if Jay, or if you want to interact, mate, I'll get you to turn your camera on so I can see if you're available. If otherwise, I'll assume that you're just in the background.
I think it's just that figuring out that part of your journey, right? And where you're at, and being open to asking for help.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing. Because, you're not alone here. And, we are here to support you all. And that's probably a big thing that, so many don't understand. And, we are open for that. And being able to really get into that safe space and sharing the shit, the good, the bad, the ugly, and figuring out where you are. Because we've been there. We
Yeah.
go through that ourselves every day. Like we get it. And because we're that one step further than you, we know how to get out of it quickly. And that we can definitely help you with that.
And like Jade, we've been doing the triad ourselves for the last 18 months without having any vocabulary to it. So yeah. Yeah, three strands together that are entwined together are unbreakable. That's how ropes are break, and it only takes one of those strands to fray for that to break. But you need those three strands entwined together to be that unbreakable, strand. Love that. Dave?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just talking about the triad. I love this mafia style motion that we're going through.
We can play around with that for sure.
I got some images I can drop later. But on another note, no, I just think it's the clarity of, obviously we're always talking about, having, somebody up here at the top of the mountain and dragging somebody up. But now, putting that third person in there to have, I guess, your mentor, your coach, so to speak, and then the aspiring hero, then I think it just gives more clarity. And I think, that combined with the voice framework, and everybody getting clarity on how that intertwines with it just makes it even clearer. So, it's been good to see over the last probably month or so, give or take a little bit, just people who are taking actions and getting more clarity, since you've been talking about the voice framework and actually moving up the ladder. So it's just been good to see. So yeah, that's probably it for me.
Love it. And Jay, I'd love to hear your insights, mate.
For me, one thing that stood out was, I love the triad idea. I've seen you guys kind of working it in action, over the past year and stuff. But what stood out for me is just, like you said, the ability to ask for help, and also the clarity that came with asking, or like figuring out where I am on the leadership level. I would say I think I'm probably an aspiring leader. But this last trip kind of helped me realize maybe I'm a little bit farther along than I might give myself credit for.
Of course you are. So how's that understanding, that that sense of clarity and vocabulary to understand where you are on that journey? What does that do for you? How does that help you to move forward?
Well, it definitely helps me. It helps me recognize exactly kind of where I am in the line and how I can move forward. I've been doing a lot of different, things and studying from a lot of different coaches and stuff, and watching a lot of different stuff. So it's helped me out and helping me stay centered.
Centered, and I'm glad you said that, because here's the thing with the understanding where you are on your leadership track. And this is where a lot of the, and Jeanette, this is for you too, this is where a lot of the overwhelm comes from, is because we're trying to do everything for everybody or everything for ourselves, and we're trying to speed up the track too fast. By understanding where you're at, it highlights the things that you need to focus on, right? And I'm going to recap my notes here just to really drive this home, right? So where you are at identifies where you're focusing on, right? So aspiring leaders want to know that they're in a sense of belonging. Show me I'm not alone. Heroes are all about it's scalability. It's all about systems. Help me get results again and again and again. Hero makers are all about, how can I now leave a legacy impact? How can I be a person of significance? Let me impact others on that space. So it's it's understanding. I did say it here. I'm just trying to find my notes in again. Understanding what it unlocks for you and where you are on that journey, right? Here it is. So leadership stage, aspiring leader says, I think I'm called for more. What they need in this space is they need to understand, how to, create their own belief, their own direction, understand the community building activities, right? So if you're identifying as an aspiring leader, the things that you need to focus on, follow one course until successful, is focus on your clarity, focus on your belief, right? Your belief levels need to be 100%, because whether you're showing up or not, whether you're doing it, realizing it or not, if you're only 90% there, guess what? Your people are only going to be 70% there. If you want to get your people to be 100% there, you need to be 110% there, because they will duplicate that. So if you're an aspiring leader, you need to go on that journey of self-identification, that, essentially find your voice, right? And find that level of belief and confidence in your journey in that space. And if you haven't got the belief or confidence, then that's when you need to lean in on your coach and mentor to get that their transfer of belief. It's the I see in you conversation, and bring that to the surface. What are your gifts? What are your strengths? How do you separate? These are the conversations you need to be having with yourself at that aspiring leader level conversation. You need to understand, okay, these are my weaknesses, these are my strengths. You need to, where you are on that journey. So I highly recommend, if you haven't done it, what's your Myers-Briggs profile? What's your Enneagram profile? What's your strength finders, your weakness finders profile? Because you need to understand how you're wired and get intimate and self-love with those things. And then through this, you need community. You need direction. You need guiding to help you in that stage. So these are the things that you need to grow. So focus in on these things. And this is where I know I accelerated my own growth journey, because I identified earlier on that I was at this stage, and I realized, all I've got to do is ask my coach and mentor questions, and I can get there faster. All right, Kylie, I'm in your inbox 10 times a day. And unlocked something for me. It gave me permission to get that activated. You guys don't leverage us anywhere near enough. I beg you, and I get to the point where I get apathetic and I stop begging you to reach out to me and ask me questions. But, Daryl, Jeanette, Jaya, you guys need to be in my inbox daily. Kick your own fucking ass for that, because I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to chase you for it. But if you guys want that exponential growth, then why the fuck are you not in my inbox daily? Seriously. I'm sorry, there's been a fire up and love passion there, but like, Jaya, man, God, I love you, but fuck, you frustrate me. Because I can see your growth journey that you're on, but I can't want it more than you want it for yourself. And this is where we need to get in and focus and drown out the noise and just really hone in on these spots until you've got that level of mastery that you're confident to move on to the next stage. The heroes here is, I've built something that works. Duplication, systems, and clarity are the things that I'm working towards, what I need to grow in. Jade, you've built some amazing funnels. You've got an amazing brand. You've got some runs on the board. So like, if I was your coach in this space, I would tell you, you need to grow in those spaces and get that level of clarity, which you're so close to that point where then you can bring on your protege and you can start bringing on your apprentice into that space, and then shift in from just being a hero into that hero makers conversation. The same goes for you, Dave. And then for me, on that hero makers conversation, for me, it's all about, how do I build leaders? How do I help other leaders grow? It's all about multiplication, mentorship, and movements. These are the things that I need. So I've got my mentor, Michael Silvers, and Joseph McClendon, and a few of those people who are at the top of their game, stretching me and pulling me and growing me in that space. And then this is our rising tides raise all ships conversation. But we can't want it more for them. We want it for our people. See, I'm in Michael's inbox 3 to 5 times a day, regardless. Even if it's just a simple check-in. Hey, Michael, how are you? You know, just doing the love stuff. You know, when I was in Japan, hey, Michael, check this out. See, the more intimate you are, connected you are with your mentor, the stronger relationship, the stronger bond you will have, the faster your growth will be. And guys, I've got 5 minutes before my next call, so I'm going to have to call it a wrap here. But this has been an amazing conversation. Like, you've just unlocked something for me, so I appreciate you all. And is there anything else that we need to wrap up before we go? Any other burning questions or anything else am I missing here? I'm just reading the comments. Cool. So Daryl says, I'm still getting used to having this level of support and being open to accepting it. I understand that as a bloke. I really, really do. I understand that it's hard for us blokes to ask for help, especially with the Australian community that we've been brought up, because that is contradictory to our conditioning. But, you know, I just know that my own growth is taken that space to be close, intimate with my mentors at the time and really lean in and ask them questions, because, you know, their wisdom untapped. So whether it's me, whether it's Jade, whether it's Dave, you know, you got the 3 of us here in this space. If I'm not available, the other 2 are, and they'll always bring it to my attention if it's missed. But whether it's me or it's your mentor or whoever it is, you should have someone in your corner as an aspiring leader, as an aspiring entrepreneur, that you are able to lean on a daily basis. Like, I know Jade leads pretty heavily on Amanda, but I know she's got Amanda in her corner. And she supports Amanda just like she supports us. It's a give and take relationship. There's a toing and throwing. There's a receiving and a giving. So guys, thank you very much for your time. Really, really appreciate you. I won't see you next week. You're going to be in great hands with Jade. Same link, same time, same place. Actually, back to Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Sorry, I just realized we're on Tuesday. And we'll look forward to seeing how you go. But Jade's going to walk you through all things tech, funnels, lead magnets in that space, to be able to help you to get your traffic to convert into leads, so you understand where to take people from there. But no, guys, we're taking you on a journey. You know, the LLD Academy is not meant to be somewhere where you stay stuck forever. It is the spot where you find your voice. Our 30-day content marketing mastery is one of those evolutions to that. And if you're not in that already, it's only $199 to get started. And this is where we get the rubber hit the road. And Dave and I are going to geek out, and we're going to get you into that AI content space. But not only able to find your voice, but to elevate your voice. Jay, you need to be in that program with us, man. All right, that's a non-negotiable. You need to be there. And so then that's where you're going to get some traction going, and you're going to get that momentum going and get plugged into the right community to help you to not only find your voice, but to elevate your voice. So guys, for those of you who have said yes, you thank you. Really believe it, believing in us, and thank you for being our guides on our journey. Also, for those of you who are sitting on the fence or not ready to go yet, you've literally got 1 hour before our $199 offer expires, and that jumps to $497. So take action. As Daz has said on our call yesterday, those who are sitting on the fence, all you're going to do is get splinters in your ass. He said it again. I love it. You only get splinters. So stop doing it. You know, there's nothing to it. Just do it, as they say. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. Bye for now.